It's the Muppet Show with very special guest star, me, apparently. Because I'm about to count down my top 10 favorite Muppet Show sketches. Ah yes, the Muppet Show. Before there were any movies, there was this bizarre and delightful TV variety show created by Jim Henson to show the world that puppets had more to offer than children's entertainment such as Sesame Street, amazing as that was. The result was a cultural phenomenon as the world was introduced to characters like Fozzie, Miss Piggy, Gonzo and countless others as they performed with dozens of amazing artists and revived classic vaudevillian songs and sketches. And more often than not, took the absolute piss out of them while they were at it. It definitely introduced me to a lot of stuff I'd never heard about otherwise. And also, here's a little anecdote for you. The way I first heard about this show was through my dad, because he used to tell me that this inner ear infection I had as an infant made me sound like the Swedish chef back when I was still learning how to talk. Yeah, thanks for the compliment, Dad. With 5 seasons spanning from 1976 to 1981, there are a lot of fun bits to pick from, and it has been difficult. So to make it a bit easier for myself, I decided that, at least for now, we're going to disregard the regular skits. Well, with one exception. Meaning you're not going to see any pigs in space, any veterinarian's hospital, any Swedish chef, or anything else like that on this list. We'll save those for another time. Oh, and Manamana is not on here. Not because I don't like it, but because it's too obvious. Sorry. And please remember, this is just my personal top 10, not the top 10 greatest of all time. I mean, I'm just some dude with a camera. I'm not trying to pretend I'm some kind of authority on this. But, either way, enough with the warnings and ramblings. Let's get our Muppet on. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna start this list by getting all the bragging out of my system, so hold on a second. A Danish man appeared on the original Muppet Show! Victor Borge, born in Denmark in 1909 under the given name Børge Rosenbaum, was a classical pianist and actor who fled to the States in 1940 due to the Nazi persecution of the Jewish people. There, he soon became famous for his talent in combining classical piano with physical and verbal comedy, and he became an absolute darling of both American and Danish pop culture. Phonetic punctuation, messing with the sheet music, playing with his ass, you name it, this guy did it. He was also a very witty man, and in Denmark he was downright famous for always dragging out his interviews way longer than intended, just because he kept screwing around with the interviewer. There's even one very famous case where he made a TV host cry laughing on live TV. So, to call this man a national treasure would be an understatement. So of course someone with this level of skill and silliness is a perfect match for the Muppet Show. And a big idol of the show's pianist, Rowlf the dog.
Ladies and gentlemen, there seems to be a dog on the stage.
Rowlf then asks if he can join in, and the two end up playing the Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2, all while trading classic music jokes.
What do you know? Do you know anything? Maybe something by Bach?
My bark is worse than my bite.
There are 3 Bachs, you know, Johann, Sebastian, and Offenbach.
I often bark myself.
Now, I don't know the first thing about classical music, but Borge always made his jokes very accessible like that. And even I can tell how insanely difficult it must be to play the piano at all through the Rowlf puppet, especially when you're trying to play along with one of the most talented and beloved pianists in the world. All in all, this bit is an amazing display of skill and wit. And it's a delightfully silly piece to boot. Truly a proud moment between a Great Dane and a dog. Okay, I know we're very early on the list, but I'm gonna cheat a little bit here because there is just no way I can choose between my 2 favorite moments from my favorite drummer, Animal. Animal was definitely a breakaway character. His wild antics were always good for a laugh, especially when they came at the most inappropriate times, like when he had to provide the soft beat to a hot, sexy version of Little Willie John's Fever, sung here by Puerto Rican actress Rita Moreno of West Side Story fame.
Never know how much I love you. Never know how much I care.
Unfortunately for her, well, soft drum beats aren't Animal's strongest point.
The fever that's so hard to bear, you give me fever. When you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight. Fever.
Sometimes the simplest joke is the funniest, and Animal repeatedly screwing up Fever for Rita Moreno, that is priceless.
You give me fever. When you kiss me. Fever.
But karma is a cruel mistress, and Animal got his comeuppance in the last season when one of the most influential drummers in the world, Buddy Rich, was the guest star. Long story short, the two had a drum battle, and Animal did not stand a chance. Oh, beautiful. I mean, who else but Buddy Rich could out-animal Animal?
Darn it! There go the lights again.
Well, Animal might be a sore loser, but this battle sure was a treat for the rest of us. You know, when I first started watching The Muppet Show, I was having a blast laughing at all the silly antics. And while I knew the movies could be emotional, I had no idea that the show itself could tug on the heartstrings as well. But that changed only 15 episodes in, when I heard the song Inchworm for the very first time.
8 and 8 are 16, 16 and 16 are 32.
Inchworm, measuring the marigolds.
Inchworm is a song originally written for the 1952 film Hans Christian Andersen. Hey, what do I know? More Danish pride! Where it was sung by Danny Kaye. And while Danny Kaye sang it with the cast in season 3, and it had actually been used way before that in Sesame Street, this version by French singer Charles Aznavour will always be the first one that comes to mind for me.
Seems to me you'd stop and see how beautiful they are.
The best word I can come up with to describe how I felt watching this for the first time is spellbound. I mean, there I was, just laughing myself silly at wacky puppets doing wacky things, and all of a sudden, like somebody flicked a switch, I'm sitting there in stunned silence, just taking in the gentleness of Charles Aznavour's voice and the simplistic beauty of the song's lyrics.
Seems to me you'd stop and see how beautiful they are.
2 and 2 are 4, 4 and 4 are 8, and as far as I'm concerned, Charles Aznavour and the little Muppet Inchworm are a match made in heaven.
Seems to me you'd stop and see how beautiful they are.
Hey you! Remember this?
A beautiful bunch, a ripe banana. Daylight come and we want go home.
Yeah, of course you do. Now, do you know the title of that song? Oh, yeah? Well, do you know who recorded the most famous version of it? No? Well, his name was Harry Belafonte, and he was one of the best things to ever happen to The Muppet Show. Harry Belafonte, the King of Calypso, was one of the most successful Jamaican-American stars ever, especially famous for the aforementioned Banana Boat song. And while he did perform that, and generally gave a great performance as a guest star, it was when he tried to help Fozzie write a new song that true magic happened.
The question is, do I know who you are? Do you know who I am? Do we care about each other? Because if we do, together we can turn the world around.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around.
From what I've read, this was one of Jim Henson's favorite episodes, if not his very favorite episode, and it's really not hard to see why.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around.
Harry beautifully builds up the song with a speech about love and understanding, and is joined by more and more African masks and Muppet cast members as the song keeps going. And clearly the crew just knows they're doing something special here, because the song extends over the end credits, where even Statler and Waldorf give in and sing along rather than snark as usual. The song had such an impact on Jim Henson, and Jim Henson had such a big impact on Harry, that he performed it again for Henson's memorial, which is something we'll come back to later. Suffice it to say, Turn the World Around is a beautiful number, and one that will always make me smile. Okay, enough of the sappy stuff. I mean, we watched this show to get some laughs, right? So, come on, Kermit, throw the funniest thing you got at me.
Oh, Johnny boy.
Oh, hell!
The pipes are calling.
Okay, for those that don't know, Danny Boy is a song written by Frederick Weatherly way back in 1913, set to the Irish national anthem. While there are many interpretations of the lyrics, most people agree on one thing. It may be one of the saddest, most tear-jerking songs ever written. Alright, fine, just go on. Get it over with.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Leprechaun Brothers! Yay! And
Peeps, horse Danny boy.
Oh my god!
Oh boy. Oh Danny.
Okay, there is no way that could get any funnier. Dang, Beaker, you got some pipes on you. I mean, do I even have to say anything? Like I said before, sometimes the simplest jokes are the funniest, and it doesn't get any more hysterical than this. I tip my hat to the mad genius that came up with this one. Alright, let's step away from the music for a moment and focus on another Muppet Show staple. That being the comedy routines. Normally this is Fozzie's bag, and by now we'd be laughing our asses off as we watched him botch his joke and get heckled by the old Coot, Statler, and Waldorf. But in Season 3, things were a little bit different, as comedian Milton Berle stepped in to deliver some yucks himself.
I feel great. I feel wonderful. I just got back from a pleasure trip. I took my mother-in-law to the airport.
And who is Milton Berle, you ask? Well, let's just say that TV as we know it would be very different without him. Milton Berle started his career as one of the original crop of vaudeville stand-up comics in the 30s, from long before people like Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, and George Carlin turned it into a raunchy, personal, satirical style of comedy. And he was considered one of the very best. And on top of that, he had quite a few movie and radio roles. And once he found TV, well, the guy was unstoppable. Hell, he was the first person to ever win an Emmy Award, and in the 40s and 50s, he was the main reason a lot of people bought their first TV set in America. So even if he had faded quite a bit from the public eye at this point, having him on the Muppet Show was a pretty big deal. But, of course, when he steps on stage to relive his stand-up roots, a certain pair of other old coots are as ready to diss him as they ever were with Fozzie.
Hey, Berle.
What?
You know what? I've just figured out your style.
Really?
You work like Gregory Peck.
Gregory Peck's not a comedian.
Well...
Okay, you know, I would love to show you some more clips of this, but it would be an absolute crime to spoil the volley of insults and comebacks that's on display here. Everybody clearly had a ton of fun getting to rip into one of TV's greatest legends, and you're just gonna have to see it and enjoy it for yourself.
Oh, yeah? I'd like to see you come down here and be funny. You first!
The Muppet Movie. A priceless comedy film, a testament to the appeal of the Muppets and filled to the brim with amazing music. Music written by the talented songwriter Paul Williams, who is famous for writing such classics as We've Only Just Begun by the Carpenters, and among superhero fans for voicing the Penguin in Batman the Animated Series from the 90s. Who, if we're being honest, was always a bit of a Muppet to begin with, so hey, full circle. But Paul Williams' association with the Muppets started way back in the early days of Season 1.
For the first time in my life, no one will make jokes about how short I am. For the first time in my life, I am the tallest person on the show. For the first time in my life, I will cry in front of 30 million people.
Paul Williams was an absolute delight on the show, and I could talk a lot about his interactions with some of the other puppets, but when it comes right down to it, the real highlight was just him singing one of his songs. More specifically, Old Fashioned Love Song.
Just an old-fashioned love song playing on the radio.
All it really is Paul sitting in a chair musing about how love songs never truly go out of style. right until he reaches the chorus and a Muppet version of himself bursts out of the radio, soon to be joined by even more Muppets. This was back in the earlier Season 1 episodes when guests received a Muppet version of themselves as thanks for participating. Using them in this number is both hilarious and sweet and makes an already great song all the more fun. It's a delightful song by a very talented man, and it marks the beginning of a beautiful partnership. Doesn't need much more reason to be on the list if you ask me. Okay, before I begin on this one, let me just say, I never intended to have 2 bits from the same episode in this video, especially not from the Victor Borge episode specifically. I just always knew I wanted this particular bit in the top 3, and I did not at all remember what episode it was from, so please hold your accusations. Either way, the next one is a Gonzo number. Normally Gonzo is associated with wacky art antics, and sure, that was his main shtick, but he did occasionally do great musical numbers such as Jamboree and a very heartfelt rendition of My Way. But my favorite has to be his version of the Buck Owens song, Act Naturally.
They're gonna put me in the movies. They're gonna make a big star out of me. They'll make a film about a man who's sad and lonely. And all they gotta do is act naturally.
If you ask me, this song is a perfect fit for Gonzo. It's an upbeat song about high hopes with just a bit of sadness sprinkled in there. And for me, it's kind of fun to ponder whether or not Gonzo has actually picked up on this sad angle, or if he just likes the song so much he doesn't care. What can I say, I'm a little odd like that. The real fun begins when Gonzo's reflection starts singing along, however.
Ah! Hey, wait a minute, you can't do this! Why not? Well, you're a reflection. You're supposed to do just what I do. But you do ludicrous things. I do what? Ludicrous things. Of course I do. I'm an artist.
The fun song, Gonzo being Gonzo, perfect mixture of mirror shots and expert puppetry, the wacky costumes. This song is a barrel of laughs, and I love it.
All we gotta do is act naturally. That was terrible.
You know, with every franchise fandom, there will always be those purists that claim that all the earlier stuff is automatically the best. And to that I say, no, not always. Early Muppet Show was a little off in some ways. Some guest stars came off slightly awkward, Scooter was a bit of an asshole forcing his way into the theater, Gonzo was even weirder. Tons of little things taken for granted now hadn't really made their way in there yet, as is natural for most shows. But with that said, one of my all-time favorite moments came only about halfway through Season 1 from guest star and theater actress Sandy Duncan, who some hardcore cartoon fans might recognize as Firefly from My Little Pony and Queen Uberta from the original Swan Princess movie. As her very first act in the episode, Sandy finds herself in a bar singing a gender-flipped version of the Barry Manilow song Nice Boy Like Me, all about wishing to cut loose and forget about expectations and responsibilities. Arguably making the song even more effective considering the times.
Won't you tell me what's a nice girl like me doing in a place that never closes? Well, I can hardly hear your holy Moses looking so sad.
So yeah, talented actress, dancing and singing with the hilariously named mutations, tons of energy, but what's so special about it? I mean, when you really come down to it, it's just a completely normal, absolutely flawless and amazing dance number provided by a gorgeous guest star bursting with energy and grace. I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
A nice girl like me.
Jokes aside though, it's a rockin' song, Sandy Duncan is charming as hell and gives it her all, and I always come back to it when I want to be put in a good mood. Well, we're at the end of the list, but before I tell you what my top favorite Muppet Show bit of all time is, let's just have a few honorable mentions. Because God knows I had like 40 candidates on my list for this one. So here we go!
can be, I can be greater. Sooner or later, I'm greater than you.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
You made me love you. I didn't want to do it.
Didn't want to do it. Didn't want to do it. Didn't want to do it. Didn't want to do it.
You made me want
Didn't want to do it.
Hey, folks. This is a story you're gonna love to hear.
Good grief, the comedians of Ireland! What you said here?
Not that here.
Oh, which here?
Another here.
How am I gonna know?
You know when you hear.
Good grief, the comedians of Ireland!
Chrissy! You don't care who's right or wrong.
I don't try to understand. To my nightmare.
And finally, my number one choice. You know what? Kermit has a point. It's not easy being green. But it can't be easy to stand in the shadow of the world's most famous amphibian either. In the Season 2 episode starring actress Bernadette Peters, Kermit's nephew Robin, who often delivers the show's cuter, more innocent numbers, is struggling to get anyone to pay attention to him, constantly being written off as just some kid. And eventually he comes to a decision.
Hello, Miss Peters.
Oh, hello, Robin. I didn't see you.
Yeah, most people don't. Listen, I'm running away from home, but I did want to stop and say goodbye.
Oh, you're running away from home? How come?
No, because nobody notices me around here.
Oh, really? I hadn't noticed.
Of course, Bernadette won't have it, and she lets Robin know that as long as just one person believes in you, more eventually will too.
Before you knew it, someone else would think, if he can do it, I can do it. Making it two whole people who believe in you.
And as the song keeps building, more and more Muppets join in to bring home the message, delivering one of the most heartwarming moments in Muppet history. Alright, I'm putting all my cards on the table here. I cannot get through this song without crying. And it must really have struck a chord with Jim Henson when it debuted on the Peanuts Snoopy the Musical too, because it was used a ton of times both before and after his death. You can really tell this was one of his favorite songs, just from the tenderness with which it's delivered here. It was even sung by the Muppet performers at Jim Henson's memorial in 1990, which is a version I especially can't get through without choking up. If you haven't seen the memorial, I strongly urge you to do so. Never has a funeral been more life-affirming.
It stands to reason you yourself would start to see what everybody sees in you.
As long as someone believes in you, more will come, and eventually, you will believe in yourself too. It's a sentiment that I and many others often need to hear yet struggle on a daily basis to really truly believe. But when sung by characters as pure and delightful as the Muppets and as talented as Bernadette, well, it gets pretty hard not to think they just might be right. And that's why this one had to be at the top. Yeah, I'm sorry. I hope that didn't get too sappy for you, but there was just no way around it. These are definitely my favorite Muppet Show moments, and I'm sure they'll stick with me and many other people for a long, long time. See you next time, everybody. Hey guys, and thanks for putting up with me for 2 Muppet videos in a row. Hopefully I'll actually do a full Muppet month another time like I had planned. If you enjoyed yourself, don't forget to press the like button and leave me some comments about your own favorite skits or movies or anything else relating to these lovely felt friends of ours. And of course, an extra special thanks to John Aljets, Keith McRae, Warren Miller, and all my other patrons for supporting me. It warms the heart more than you can imagine. And if you're out there thinking you'd like to support me as well, there's a link to my Patreon in the description below. But believe me when I say I appreciate your views alone. And if you're new, go ahead and press the subscribe button and the little bell to make sure you're among the first to know when more, usually less sappy videos are out, whether they be reviews, top 10s, speed paints, or other nerdy antics. See you then, folks!